ከተማው ከሚበላው በቀር የሚጣል የለም።
Long before the heart of Africa was ever mapped, explorers were irresistibly drawn to this secret world.
ዓባይ ወንዝ የወንዞች አባት ይፈሳል ከአገሬ
Africa's greatest secret of all, for thousands of years, was the source of the world's longest river, the Nile. The Nile is unique among the world's rivers. Some call it the most important river on earth because it gave life to the first great civilization. To a geologist like me, this desert is a rich and productive environment. Yet just a mile from the river, I don't find a single living plant. As long as 8,000 years ago, farmers diverted water from the Nile to irrigate their crops and made the desert bloom. Without the Nile, there would have been no Great Pyramids, no advanced civilization with all its innovations in language, art, and astronomy. Each summer, the water level of the Nile rose several feet without a single drop of rain falling in Egypt. The early Egyptians built structures to measure the rise of the river precisely. But a few times in history, the river mysteriously failed to rise for several summers in a row, causing famine throughout Egypt. Every year, the farmers watched the river and wondered, where does all this water come from? This was the Nile's first great mystery. In 1858, a British explorer set out to solve the mystery of the Nile. He proclaimed Lake Victoria the one true source. There was one minor problem, though. He was wrong. Lake Victoria contributes only a fraction of the Nile's waters. The main source of the Nile is in the rugged highlands of Ethiopia. The riches of Egypt are a gift from Lake Tana. Over 80% of the Nile's water comes from Ethiopia's Blue Nile and its tributaries. My goal is to lead the first team down the entire length of the Blue Nile, from here in Ethiopia all the way to the Mediterranean. 3,000 miles. I've brought my team to Lake Tana for the expedition of a lifetime. We reached the Ethiopian highlands just in time to witness a Christian procession.
የዓባይ ውሃ ነው ጠበል
I went for the first time to Ethiopia, and I trust Pasquale as our leader.
Abuna
Zerabruk.
Zerabruk.
Yeah, he's one of the 9 saints who came from Syria.
Piccolo Abai.
Gulu Abai or
Gilgil
Watat
Abai.
Abai.
Watit Abai.
Pasquale has led expeditions to Mount Everest and run many of the world's most violent rivers. He knows very well what he's doing.
የዓባይ ውሃን ነው ጠበል
We're here to attempt the first descent of Africa's mightiest river, the Blue Nile.
ከኢትዮጵያ ሀገሬ ይፈልጋል
I've hired some Ethiopian boatmen to be our cooks, our helpers, and bodyguards.
ግብፅም ምድር ላይ
We'll be heading into territory few outsiders have ever seen.
የዓባይ ውሃን ነው ጠበል ከኢትዮጵያ ሀገሬ
The upper part of the Blue Nile was first run and mapped in 1968, when a British Army expedition explored just this section. They had many serious injuries. One man died. They found that the Blue Nile was crawling with huge swarms of crocodiles. They had 70 experts. My team is mostly novices.
All right, you're in the water again. Okay, again, in the boat.
I'll really have to keep an eye on our Egyptian scientist, Dr. Mohammed Magahed.
Mohammed, where's Mohammed?
As a hydrologist, I spend my time indoors, in a laboratory.
Good job.
Pasquale is worried about me, and so am I.
Gordon Brown, our safety kayaker, is the only one who'll be with me for the entire 4-month expedition.
I'll come by. You grab these loops right back here. And pull yourself up on the boat. I'll take you back to the raft or take you to the shore.
Right.
Either way. you can
5
handle
years
it.
ago, Gordon was diagnosed with a brain tumor. It would have killed most of us. But he fought it off with a year of radiation and chemotherapy. He's really a survivor. Saskia Lange is a journalist from Spain. She's writing an article about religion along the river.
The river travels through areas with no roads, so I'll be able to study indigenous people. People I could never meet any other way.
Thank you very much.
Miriam Siko is our team's archaeologist.
Here in the holy city of Lalibela, the Ethiopians dug down 40 feet into bedrock. This church was chiseled out of one giant block of stone. It's one of 11 carved churches linked by tunnels. For 16 centuries, the Christians here remained very closely allied to the church in Egypt, 3,000 miles away. I wonder how the Nile kept that connection alive.
Some people say that hidden in these stone churches is the Ark of the Covenant, the box that Indiana Jones was after. The Ark contains the tablet engraved with the 10 Commandments, the actual tablet given to Moses. Is it really here? Lalibela is the 8th wonder of the world, or if it's not, it should be. Just as the Christians in Lalibela carved magnificent churches out of solid rock, the Blue Nile River has been carving this huge canyon through the highlands of Ethiopia, which the British named the Grand Canyon of Africa. The Scout helps, but it's deceptive. From the air, it's really easy to forget that it's the most dangerous river in Africa. aerial scout confirmed that the high water had finally peaked. It was time to start the expedition. Gordon and I plan on being on the river for probably more than 4 months.
This is Bahandar, and again, this is Lake Tana. This is where we'll be putting in.
Here I was, leading the greenest bunch of river rookies that ever climbed into a raft. Keeping everyone on this expedition alive is my greatest responsibility.
And then finally to Sissisat Falls. We will then go through this canyon, which has a lot of class 5 and 6 whitewater.
Before we departed, Muhammad had a promise to keep.
My grandfather is a farmer in Egypt. He gets 100% of his water from the Nile. I promised him when I go to the river source, I would bring him a vial of holy water. The Ethiopians treasure the Nile, just as we do in Egypt.
As we head down the river, the whole team is pumped. Most of the wild rivers on every continent have already been run, but not the Blue Nile. This is one of the last great river expeditions left in the world. No one has ever succeeded in running this entire river from source to sea. All those who've tried it have either died or given up. As a geologist, these lava flows have a certain fascination for me. Lava flows like this one pinch the river together, forcing all the water through a narrow channel, creating huge rapids. But the volcanic rocks are as sharp as knives, and our rafts are made of fabric. This was Muhammad's very first swim in the Nile. I kept a close eye on him. There's a fine line between an exciting rapid and a deadly one. The rafts are really heavy, so when the river gets too deadly to run, we send one raft through empty, and then we portage the rest of the gear.
One sure way to get a laugh in Ethiopia is to carry a rubber raft on your head.
The Ethiopian highlands were once carpeted in thick forest, but just in the past 30 years, the Amhara tribe have cut down 90% of the trees to make charcoal for cooking fuel. This has changed the entire watershed.
The Blue Nile carries lots of volcanic minerals that used to nourish my grandfather's fields in Egypt. I test for the salinity because the rising salt content of the Nile is destroying our farmland.
The river is accelerating, but the team won't really grasp the magnitude of this river's power until they set their eyes on one of the most magnificent sights in all of Africa, Sissisat Falls. Gordon's a bit of a cowboy. He's got his own style of doing things.
I told Pasquale I was going to run every inch of this river. Now he knows I'm serious.
Now it's time to see how Mohammed holds up under pressure. He's never been on a rope before.
Don't worry, okay? Good. You're doing really well, Mohammed. Keep moving.
I need to push Mohammed to get it over with fast. The less time he has to think about this, the better.
A little further, a little further, a little further, Mohammed. A little further, come on. A little further, okay.
Saskia got tired of waiting for Mohammed to inch his way down, so I let her go ahead.
This isn't really fair. When I signed up for this trip, Pasquale asked me if I could swim. He never asked me if I could fly.
Mohammed didn't score a lot of style points, but he showed me some courage. I think our city boy is starting to toughen up.
I didn't come all this way just to collect water samples. I'm mainly here to experience the river, to gain some insights about it. But I'm also here to learn about myself. And I'm so surprised at what I can do.
These people, the Amhara, hike a long way down to the river to tend their crops. But otherwise, they shun the river as a dangerous place. They're kept away by bandits and malaria.
The most gung-ho team member is Michel Lullier from Chile. He's the team photographer.
I love Ethiopia. I admire the gentle dignity of the people. They enjoy what they have. I just hope my photos can capture their spirit.
No wonder Christianity survived here. The mountains kept invaders out. This is not exactly a gentle land.
I admire efficient predators, except when they're contemplating having me for lunch. The most dangerous croc in the world is the Nile crocodile. They swim 12 miles an hour and eat more people in Africa than all other animals combined.
So we were floating down the river, and up on the beach was this huge crocodile, maybe 14 feet, and he slid off the beach and was really aggressive and made a beeline straight for Gordon.
He started to arch out of the water, and he just kept coming at me. So I raised my paddle and I smacked him on the head. He dove under my boat. He hit my boat as he went down. For a second, I thought it was going to tip over.
And as the crocodile opened that big mouth, I just was afraid that the crocodile was going to grab hold of his arm and take Gordon and twist him under. If that would have happened to Gordon, he'd have been dead. And there was no way Gordon was going to go ahead and right himself again before the other crocodiles got to him.
At night, when we camp by the river, we keep an eye on the crocodiles before we go to sleep. I never had to do this in Cairo.
Take all the water you can hold in your hands and let it go. Just let it go.
Those aren't rocks, Saskia, those are hippos.
Take all the answers that you think you understand and let it go. Just let it go.
Pasquale warned us that one rogue hippo can easily capsize a raft. But that didn't keep us from getting a closer look.
That was the most beautiful thing, to see for the first time hippos. There were 8 around the boat with their ears like that.
Don't ever worry what you're heading for. The river always knows the way. We'll be forever drifting in between tomorrow and yesterday.
All along the journey, whenever we stop to buy vegetables, eggs, and meat from the local people, we get to see how they live. Ethiopia has over 100 distinct ethnic groups, many of them isolated from each other by the rugged terrain.
And let it go, just let it go.
Over 200 million people depend on the Nile, and that population is projected to double in the next 25 years. Can the Nile support all these people? For over 1,000 years, whenever Ethiopia threatened to dam the Nile, the Egyptians took that threat seriously. If the river were diverted, Egypt would die. Who owns the water in the Nile?
I went off to explore a little side channel, and next thing I know, I was getting shot at. I ducked behind some rocks, trying to get any cover I could. Probably 5 shots came across the river. I thought, well, this could be it. You know, my only real hope is to get down the river.
I heard gunshots. In these remote canyons, local bandits called Shifta have robbed and killed at least 4 people on previous expeditions. Gordon had been gone for over an hour, and I couldn't see any sign of him.
I knew I couldn't stay there for very long. I had to paddle out and go downstream. I knew if I stopped, I'd be an easy target.
That night, I had a long argument with Gordon. I can't let him go off on his own like that because we're approaching the longest stretch of whitewater I've ever attempted in my life. Flipping a raft in huge whitewater can be fatal. People can drown in a hurry if they hit their head on a rock or get snagged underwater. On earlier expeditions, at least 6 people have died in this one section alone. That morning, Michel steered his raft right into my worst nightmare.
I did a perfect flip. Everybody, the 3 of us, went into the water.
everyone scream Azo, which is crocodile. And I'm thinking, oh my God, there's a crocodile in the river.
And this was the first time on the entire expedition where I could actually feel the hair go up on the back of my neck.
We knew there could be crocodiles around it. Usually they wait in the rapids so they can catch the fish which go through the rapids. And we were big fishes.
Everyone in Michelle's boat is lucky to be alive.
We'll be able to come down and go through here, but I think it's safe. Yeah, I don't know. The run out isn't too bad. So. Are you all right over?
Yeah, I'm okay. Watch out left and right. It's up front.
Roger, you think we can run it right down the middle over?
That night, we camped right at the border of Sudan. It's a dangerous place. Saskia, Miriam, and Mohammed are terrified about crossing into a country where civil war has been raging on and off for almost 20 years. They'll leave us here and rejoin us later in Khartoum. As soon as we crossed the border, Gordon and I took off exploring Sudan, the most mysterious country on the Nile. The Sudan is cloaked in secrecy behind the veil of Islam. When we came across a camel market, we were a little bit apprehensive at first, but we decided to go for it. How often do you get to bid at a camel auction? It turned out to be a great day. And I was sure glad when Gordon was outbid on that camel. Even mad dogs and Englishmen don't come out in this type of heat. 115 degrees in the shade was normal. Here in Khartoum, the capital of Sudan, the two rivers converge. The White Nile comes in on the right under the bridge to join our much larger Blue Nile. It was great to have the team back together again. War and violence are widespread in the Sudan, and yet we never once ran across a single militant extremist. Here we were surrounded on all sides by happy, good-hearted Muslim people giving us the warmest of welcomes. And they were amazed at how far we'd traveled down the Nile.
Pasquale, how did you say hello?
We're heading for the ancient city of Meroe, one of the Nile's best-kept secrets.
ليا فيك شجون وأمنيات وأحلام أغنيات ولحوم في الصبا وغرام أهلي فيك يا نيل مخلصين وكرام للحزين ماسحين دمعة الآلام.
In the remote desert of Sudan, the Nile flows right past an ancient ghost town few outsiders have ever visited. We're among the lucky few. The Nubians ruled this region of the Nile for over 1,000 years. Over 2,000 years ago, these pyramids of Meroe were surrounded by forests. When the Nubians cut all the trees down, they allowed the sands to blow in and hastened their own downfall.
I feel the loss of a great civilization and the loss of the forests. The systems that support life are so fragile. If we don't nurture them, they turn to sand and dust.
Here on the banks of the Nile, we heard haunting echoes of an ancient dynasty, half buried in sand and obscurity. Why, when the Egyptian pharaohs are so revered, do the Nubians still languish in the shadows of history? It's the greatest mystery we've encountered along the Nile.
Sudan proved to be full of surprises. The friendliness of the people, and the haunting beauty of this lost kingdom, the Kingdom of Kush. Near the border of Sudan and Egypt, the Nile River flows into Lake Nasser. A fishing boat captain warned us that we'd never get across Lake Nasser safely in our tiny rafts. To make up for lost time, I decided that Gordon and I should keep crossing Lake Nasser by night on our own. Big mistake. A huge windstorm came up out of nowhere.
The wind was gusting up to 60 miles an hour, and the cold spray was freezing us to the bone. We were 10 miles from shore. If a big wave knocked us overboard, there'd be no way for anyone to find us, and we'd die of exposure. Pasquale was in bad shape. I was afraid he wouldn't make it.
We're all very tired. We're very tired from the wind and the sun on our faces and the water. So tonight will hopefully be a good night. It's been a long, long haul at this point.
This has come down to the grind. It really has come down to the grind.
I was battling a relapse of malaria. I had chills, fever, and I was just totally exhausted. I was sore, I was sick. We hated to give up our dream of running the Nile, but it just wasn't worth dying for. But the next day, I was revived by a pharaoh's dream and a remarkable survival story.
When the Nile Valley was flooded, ancient monuments disappeared beneath Lake Nasser, but this one survived. In 1260 BC, the Egyptian pharaoh Ramses the Great had this temple built along the banks of the Nile.
As an Egyptologist, Miriam lives and breathes this stuff.
"40 years ago, the new man-made lake was about to flood this temple. To save it, workers carefully cut the huge temple apart and moved it block by block to higher ground.
Moving this temple was a heroic effort. If they can pull that off, Gordon and I could finish what we set out to do.
The ancient Egyptians studied the stars and used that knowledge to create the first accurate calendar with 365 days a year. The temple was perfectly lined up with the sun. On a prescribed day, the sunrise reaches deep into the temple to light up the royal statues. Exactly how they were able to achieve this was a mystery to me.
My Egyptian ancestors once had two things to fear from the Nile: too much water and too little. But no longer.
The Aswan High Dam has put an end to the catastrophic floods that once killed thousands of people. But the dam is a mixed blessing because the summer floods no longer enrich the farmland. They no longer leach salts out of the soil.
Look how high the river used to be.
Without the summer floods, there is no more need for these Nilometers. The markers the pharaohs used to track the yearly rise of the Nile.
We took a ride to an abandoned Christian monastery, just a few miles from the river, where Miriam found an unexpected link between religion and the Nile.
Priests at monasteries like this always had strong links to the church at Lalibela in Ethiopia. When the Christians here were in danger of being wiped out by the Muslim majority, the Ethiopians upriver threatened to block off the Nile, and the threat worked. This is how Christianity survived here for so long.
Miriam told us how the pharaohs felt blessed by nature and God. The Nile was the perfect trade route. The trade winds carried the sailboats upriver, and then the river's flow brought them back down again. This turned the Nile into a river of gold. After more than 3 months on the river, we had our routine down cold. Stop, unpack the boats, make dinner, pick the tents up, eat, take a shower, go to sleep, wake up, pack the boats.
It's every day, day after day, day after day, day after day.
I first saw Luxor as a boy, yet after visiting the source of the Nile, all this looks different to me. For 3,000 years, Egypt was ruled by pharaohs like Ramses the Great and the female pharaoh Hatshepsut. The Nile turned them into living gods. No wonder they worshipped the river. It was 115 degrees when Miriam took us to the Valley of the Queens, where we visited the tomb of Queen Nefertari, the favorite wife of Ramses the Great.
At the tomb of the pharaoh Tutmosis III, I told my friends how the Nile was revered as a passageway into both life and death.
And for me too, this has been more than a river trip. It was like an inner voyage. It did change me.
Reaching Cairo was a milestone. After months of sand dunes and mud huts, the city dazzles me like some fabulous mirage.
With the Nile as their power base, the pharaohs ruled for 3,000 years. Their dynasties are long gone, but the river's spiritual power remains.
I think that I've gained something spiritually from this trip. Sharing this expedition with Pasquale has shown me that really anything is possible if your heart's in it.
After 4 long, grueling months and 3,000 miles, we finally made it to the Mediterranean. I can't believe it. We're the first people in history to go all the way from source to sea on the Blue Nile. As we finally hit the surf and the salt water, I was flooded with exhaustion and pride and just overwhelming joy.
The river connects people. The lucky necklace from a Christian girl in Ethiopia brought me new friends all along the Nile.
The times that meant the most to me are the simple, everyday encounters with people along the river. You know, Gordon and I had some real rough spots along the way, but he came through when the chips were down and I needed him. He saved my life more than once. We've all got infinite respect now for this river. You know, we realized that when we finally stepped on the beaches of Alexandria, our final destination.
I was so proud of taking part in this expedition. I went right away to visit my grandfather. As a farmer, he treasured the vial of holy water I brought him from the source.
A Muslim girl in Alexandria admired my necklace. What luck. People of many cultures share the river. A lot of them in conflict, but most of them in harmony. Our friends in Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt follow different religions, yet they all draw spiritual sustenance from the river.
The Nile has brought such wealth and power that many have tried to own it. But the river has defied even the mightiest pharaohs because it's greater than all of us. The waters of the Nile bring life and nourish the soul.
ዓባይ ወንዝ የወንዞች አባት